When you play bad baseball and you don't execute the fundamentals, you deserve to lose the baseball game. And that's what happened to the Marlins against the Astros.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for 4 seasons. You can find me on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. On Monday, the Astros came into town, and the Marlins were never in this baseball game. Coming off of that momentum you had after sweeping the Yankees, it was a bit of a letdown. And it's something that they have to flush. They have to put it behind them and move on to tomorrow. But it was an ugly performance from a team that had been playing some of their best baseball over this past weekend. I want to start by talking about Sandy Alcantara, who started this game. I was expecting a really good start from him. The pressure's off. The deadline's gone. He didn't have to worry about being traded. And it was one inning that just got away from him. In the 4th inning, the top of the 4th, the Astros got 6 hits. 6 hits in one inning, and they put up a 5 spot. And Sandy Alcantara's final line was very strange, to say the least. 7 innings. He ends up completing 7, 9 hits, 6 runs. They were all earned. Only 1 walk and struck out 5. And my main takeaway from Sandy's start was, why was he throwing the curveball over and over again? The Astros were crushing it all night long. The fastball was humming. It was a pretty solid pitch for him tonight. But the curveball, it was almost as if Houston was sitting off speed and daring Sandy to throw it. And when he threw it, they usually didn't miss it. I was not a fan of the repeated usage of that particular pitch for Sandy, and it's another testament to his struggles this season, and even going back to 2023. Of course, he didn't pitch last year due to Tommy John surgery, in which 1 inning is all it takes for the game to get away from you. Like I said, he ended up going 7 innings. It's a rare feat for Marlins pitchers this year, but that's just how much damage was done in that 4th inning. 5 runs, and you're suddenly down 5-0. The game's feeling like it's getting away from you at that point. Offensively, Jason Alexander, who was a former Marlins farmhand, he goes 6 shutout innings, struck out 6, allowed 3 hits, 1 walk. He looked like a Cy Young contender out there, and that can't happen. The Marlins have to have better at-bats and better approaches in a game like this. They end up striking out 10 times in this game, 7 hits. Both of their runs came on back-to-back pinch hit homers, courtesy of Javier Sanoja, who hit 3 homers in his last 5 at-bats, and then Derek Hill, who was just reinstated off of the injured list. But overall, offensively, they got shut down. The 4th inning got away from Sandy in a hurry. It was a really frustrating game to watch. And then in the 8th inning, it was just bad fundamentals all around. There's a runner on first, and there's a grounder to Eric Wagman, who had come into the game. He ended up pinch hitting. He's there defensively. He immediately steps on first, throws it to second, and Otto Lopez, who's covering the base, doesn't even tag the runner. That's not a force out. When the runner's out at first, you have to tag the runner. Otherwise that's nothing. And so it turned in from an inning-ending double play, tailor-made, tag the base, throw it to second, Lopez, all he has to do is tag the runner. The throw beat him by a mile. That turned into the Astros putting up a couple of more runs, and they end up winning the game handily. And then in the bottom of the eighth, you have Agustin Ramirez, who draws a leadoff walk. Liam Hicks follows it up with a single, kind of a bloop single to left field. Agustin Ramirez, round second, heads to third. Jesus Sanchez, our old friend Sanchi, picks it up, throws it to third. Augustin's caught in no man's land. He's tagged out. And there you go. Instead of first and second with a potential rally here late in the game, your momentum's cut down yet again. That kind of baseball can't happen if you're trying to win. And what the Marlins are doing, they're trying to win. Like I said, this team is in contention for the wild card spot. They're playing great baseball up until now. You can't let that happen, especially the way it was happening. Otto Lopez is too good of a baseball player to make that mental error. Agustin Ramirez has to be a smarter base runner and know the situation that his team is in late in the ball game. And of course, Sandy Alcantara, it's just about execution for him. He goes 7 innings. Every other inning except the fourth rather, was shut down. The 7th inning, he did give up a run, but he was really solid. It's just that one inning, it seems like runners get on base and it falls apart. And the overusage of the curveball, that's what doomed him. Sandy Alcantara, he knows he has to be better in a game like this. How about Jesus Sanchez in this one, who kicked the scoring off for the Houston Astros with an RBI double early in the game? In the 4th inning, he kicked the scoring off. Old friend Jesus Sanchez. And, I want to see Jesus Sanchez succeed overall, but not tonight, not against the Marlins when they're playing very good baseball and you want to keep this momentum up. It felt like Monday's game was a step back in the wrong direction. You have Cal Quantrill pitching on Tuesday. Rebound, reset, and get yourself mentally ready for a very good baseball team. The Astros are a very good club, and they're going to put the pressure on this Marlins team. It's not the end of the world. You can still win the series, but from a viewer standpoint, just watching the game, it was incredibly frustrating, the quality of baseball going on. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about the future of the Marlins corner infield spots and why one player in particular has impressed me as of late. He played in today's game. That's coming up right after this. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, you're playing beach volleyball, and you're hitting the jet skis. You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. And the app's easy to use. It's fast payouts. There's no waiting around for your money if you win. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you to all the everyday listeners out there making Locked On Marlins a part of your daily routine. I do appreciate each and every one of you. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about the future of the Marlins corner infield. One player in particular has really impressed me as of late, and that's Graham Pauley. Graham Pauley has been a magician at third base defensively. And he reminds me of another player who currently is playing in the National League by the name of Ke'Bryan Hayes, who, of course, is a Gold Glove winner and was just traded this deadline from the Pirates to the Reds. And the reason I say Graham Pauley reminds me of Hayes is all you have to do is look at the defensive metrics. Graham Pauley this season, he has a 94th percentile ranking for outs above average. His range is great. He's a very, very good defender. Ke'Bryan Hayes is arguably the best defender right now at third base, but they have a similarity in the sense that they struggle at the plate. Graham Pauley on the season is hitting 222. Ke'Bryan Hayes is not much better on the year. Before the trade to the Reds, he was hitting 236, just 2 bombs. His offensive production has taken a huge drop off after he signed a mega contract with Pittsburgh after the 2021 year. He signed an 8-year, $70 million contract with Pittsburgh. Of course, Graham Pauley's not going to sign for that amount of money, but I think the value that Graham Pauley can provide is much like that of a Ke'Bryan Hayes. And obviously, there's teams out there that value that at the hot corner. The Reds just traded for him. And I was listening to our friends over at the Locked On Reds podcast, Jeff Carr and Stephen Offenbaker, and Jeff loved that trade for Cincinnati, even knowing that Ke'Bryan Hayes is not a good hitter. There's something about the value of a elite defender at third base that can't be understated. And I think the Marlins have that right now in Graham Pauley. Of course, the future of the third base position is and was supposed to be Connor Norby. I don't know if that's the case necessarily. Connor Norby had a very poor season overall. He started the season on the injured list. He's currently on the injured list. Hopefully he comes back in late August, early September. But I think there's a question mark in terms of his ability to play the position long term and also just to survive hitting at the major league level. He chases a ton and he doesn't counteract that with an above average glove. So for the foreseeable future, I think it's great to see Graham Pauley get the majority of the at-bats, consistent playing time, because you know he's going to lock down the hot corner. It's all about developing his bat and to see if he can, provide any value there offensively. He did hit a home run against St. Louis last week. He hit a double, I believe, against the Yankees. So you're seeing flashes of Graham Pauley coming along offensively. But moving on to first base, where do you rock here? Do you go with Eric Waggaman? Because Eric Waggaman, to me, is a DFA candidate. And it's nothing against Waggaman. I know he's trying out there, and I feel for him as a player and as a person, but it's not working. And this is a business, you gotta let it go. They parted ways with Jonah Bride. I mean, the Jonah Bride era feels like 100 years ago at this point. Matt Mervis is in AAA. He was outrighted after he was DFA'd. He cleared waivers. When is it Eric Waggaman's turn? You brought up Troy Johnston, who's not getting consistent playing time against lefties. I'd rather see Troy Johnston play every day than Eric Waggaman getting the majority of the at-bats against left-handers. Then you have Liam Hicks, who's also a lefty, and who catches. He can play first base. I think the most obvious answer, in-house at least, for first base, is Agustin Ramirez. And I know this is a controversial topic because a lot of fans, a lot of people want Agustin Ramirez to continue catching. But overall, it makes the most sense to move him to first base where you're already having subpar production. Take catching, take those responsibilities, throw him out the window. He can learn first. It's an easier position defensively than catching is, for obvious reasons. And then he can hit. And he can split his time between first and DH. I would rather Augustine either be the full-time DH or provide subpar defense at first base where he's still mashing because it's not working behind the plate. In the minor leagues, the Marlins don't have a clear-cut prospect to fill that hole, both at third and first. Now, of course, they drafted Iva Arquette out of Oregon State as a shortstop. Some people believe that he's going to end up moving to third long term because he's so big and that's a better profile for him defensively. And if that's the case, then you can dream on Iva Arquette being a third baseman. But it looks like they want him to stick at shortstop. So for the Marlins, until Arquette, if and when he does move to third base, then it's Graham Pauley and Javier Sanoja. Javier Sanoja, though, to me, he's more of a utility player who can play every day. It just depends on where you want to slot him in defensively. I think Javier Sanoja is a very valuable player because of his versatility. I don't think he's an everyday third baseman. So that's the other aspect of this that has to be taken into account. Yes, you like Sanoja. He's hit 3 homers over his last 2 games played, but he's not your everyday third baseman. He's more of a jack of all trades utility guy. Reminds me a lot of John Birdie. So when I look at the corner positions, that's obviously the Marlins' weak links, third and first. And what the problem with that is that those are notoriously slugging positions. You have to hit to be an everyday first baseman in the majors. You have to hit to be an everyday third baseman in the majors, unless you're an absolute wizard with the glove, and then you're like Ke'Bryan Hayes. So Graham Pauley, I'm all for him being the everyday third baseman and to see if he continues being excellent defensively, but you need more offensive production from those 2 spots. That might be a position where in the offseason, you try to address. You try to get some upgrades at those corner spots. And I think what helps the Marlins is that they have a ton of pitching depth, and they're going to have to make some very tough decisions regarding who's going to be in the rotation for 2026 and make a trade, potentially get a third baseman, get a first baseman. I'm going to talk about that pitching depth right after this. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. This one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off of the course, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I'm not much of a golfer, but it's still fun to go to the driving range, and for me, just see how far I can hit the golf balls. So I need to be energized for that, and you need to be energized if you're heading out to the golf course to play 9 holes, 18 holes, just hanging out with your buddies. Golf's all about the good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart and spending money. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with friends or you're trying to turn those 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you're watching the show. And if you're listening to the show, remember that Locked On Marlins is on all the major podcast platforms, so you can take the show wherever you go, whether you're at the gym, you're driving your car. Locked On Marlins can be a part of your daily routine. The Marlins have a ton of talent in-house, in their clubhouse right now, and also in the minor leagues. And I want to take a second to really talk about who they have and the tough decisions that they're going to have to make this coming up offseason regarding the starting 5 in the rotation. And this conversation has definitely changed since before the trade deadline, because I expected either Sandy Alcantara or Edward Cabrera, if not both of them, to be moved. But Peter Bendix kept them around. They want to give this postseason thing a go, try to make a run at it. And we know that they're both under contract for 2026. Sandy, of course, has one more year of team control before a club option, which the Marlins could exercise. So potentially 2 more years of control. And Edward Cabrera has 3 more years after 2025. He's not a free agent until 2029. So there's absolutely no rush to move off of him. And currently in the rotation, let's take a look. You have Cal Quantrill. He's a free agent. You can write him off. He's not going to be back in 2026. Jansen Junk, he's been a very good find for Miami, control specialist. I think he's earned himself a rotation spot the rest of the way, unless the wheels fall off down the stretch, and an opportunity to compete for a rotation spot again next season. But look at the injured list. You have Ryan Weathers, who was great during his limited time on the mound this season. He might be coming back this year. You have, of course, Yuri Perez. I almost forgot to mention him. Yuri, probably the best out of the bunch I've mentioned. I think Yuri is going to be the ace in 2026 and compete for a Cy Young. If he stays healthy, the sky is the limit for Yuri. Yuri's locked in. Cabrera's locked in. And then you have Braxton Garrett coming off of Tommy John surgery. He's progressing well in his recovery. Great 2023. Adam Major is in AAA. Now, I would argue he's close to Major League. No, he is Major League ready. He already made a start, but there's no room for him in the rotation, so he's getting consistent reps for the Jumbo Shrimp. Robbie Snelling is right there knocking on the door. The Marlins have a lot of choices to make. And what I think is going to happen is they're going to end up trading 1 or 2 pieces in the offseason. And it feels a lot like a few years ago, where the Marlins pitching prospects all came up and they were starting to settle into the rotation. And we were talking about a potential Edward Cabrera trade for a bat, a Braxton Garrett trade for a bat. And we're pretty much in the exact same spot as we were then. There's clear holes at first and arguably third. If Graham Pauley sticks there, I still think they need to bring in somebody with a higher offensive ceiling, unless Pauley can show what he's got. First base, though, Peter Bendix could make the decision in the offseason to trade one of these arms. Obviously, Yuri's not going anywhere. He's untouchable at this point. I don't think you want to move Sandy Alcantara if he struggles down the stretch. Now, if he does, they could possibly move him. I'd hate to see that happen, especially after how he reacted post-deadline, saying he was checking his phone. He was really nervous. He wants to be in Miami. Even with the struggles, I don't think you move Sandy Alcantara. And I'm going to say it, I don't want them to trade Edward Cabrera. I'm a believer in Cabrera. I think this turnaround from the last 4 or 5 years of his career to now is legit. And you're seeing him blossom into a star. Cabrera should be here with the years of control. If you don't sell them at the deadline, don't sell them in the offseason. But then that begs the question, how are you going to get those talented players at first base and third base? Which is why you have that depth. Thomas White is another prospect. I mean, there's so many guys that the Marlins have coming up through their system on the injured list that are going to make spring training next year very interesting, because you can only have 5. theoretically 6, but I don't see the Marlins going to a 6-man rotation for the sake of a 6-man rotation and getting another arm in the building. What would I want to see the Marlins do regarding the depth? Here's how I look at it. Yuri Perez, Sandy, and Edward Cabrera frontline the rotation. That's a 3-headed monster, especially if Sandy can regain any part of his Cy Young caliber stuff and arm. If he can get back to somewhat of the pitcher he used to be, then that's one of the best 1, 2, 3 punches that a team's going to throw a lineup in all of baseball. I think Jansen Junk is going to compete for a spot, depending how well he pitches down the stretch. Then I don't see why not. I think Robbie Snelling is right there. If he doesn't debut in September, I would like to see him in the rotation in 2026. Thomas White, I don't know if he's going to be ready. He's still in Double-A. If I had to guess, he starts next year in the minors and is a quick call-up. Cal Quantrill, you move on from. I want to see Max Meyer move to the bullpen. I want to see a trade happen, but I don't know exactly who you want to move. If Ryan Weathers, here's my X factor. If Ryan Weathers can come back and pitch 4 or 5 really good outings, then I think you could consider moving Weathers and get back some value, get back an everyday player. Braxton Garrett, he's coming off of Tommy John surgery. He's not going to pitch this season. He seems to me as more of a next year's deadline piece. If he's healthy, strings together some good starts with the depth that the Marlins have, it feels like Garrett can be expendable. I just don't want to see this team trade Cabrera and trade Sandy after everybody was hyping Peter Bendix up and just thrilled that they're still on the Marlins. It would be a gut punch to see any of these guys moved in the offseason. Kind of like Luzardo, but in a different sense because Luzardo was out for the majority of 2024. Cabrera and Sandy will have pitched the majority of this season. So to trade them, it would be like, oh, we're doing this all over again. We're going to watch Cabrera go to the Cubs or the Mets or whatever team he ends up with and shove against us. I don't want to see that happen. And Sandy Alcantara should be a Marlin for life. Tough decisions. Peter Bendix, though, has earned my confidence as a fan in building this team. As I said before, they're way ahead of schedule. This team's 1 game under 500. They can get right back to 500 with a win on Tuesday. Cal Quantrill, who pitched excellent in the month of July, can he kick off the month of August with the same momentum? You're not about breaking apart the future for the current success. You're not going to mortgage and trade off prospects for a third baseman or a first baseman. But I think you can trade from your depth. It's just a matter of who. Let me know in the comments who you would want to see moved. Because as I'm going through this list, I don't really want to see anybody moved unless it's 2 players who are injured. And I don't think you can get a ton of value back for them right now with Ryan Weathers and Braxton Garrett. And then Max Meyer is another arm, but is a team willing to take a chance on him? Because regardless if you can trade Max Meyer in the offseason, I think you need to move him to the bullpen. I don't think Max Meyer is a starter. That experiment has to end. But that's a good idea. You move Max Meyer, you get back a bat. Maybe you package Meyer and the reliever because you have relievers in the minor leagues who can come up in 2026, and you get an everyday hitter. The rest of the way, though, the Marlins got to keep playing good baseball. They can't have another performance like they did tonight. Sandy has to be better. He knows that. We know that. and the Marlins will make things interesting down the stretch and provide competition to the Reds and the Padres. Why not us? Shock the world, Marlins. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Marlins. I appreciate you guys for listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.